This is Futurebuilders podcast, and I'm your host, Teemu Uotila. I'm an enthusiastic future explorer working with a Finnish tech company. Together with my guests, we are building the future today. Are you in? This is Futurebuilders podcast with Anna Cook, Deputy Head of Talent Acquisition at CERN. Together with her, we'll be finding out what does it take to be super talented in the future? What are the features that experts need to focus on in order to succeed in the future? How will super talents be recruited in the future? As you all know, CERN is a renowned scientific institute that hosts tens of thousands of people annually working in the field of physics, engineering, and all kind of science related to that. But naturally, you need someone to take care of these scientists and people and make sure that they can produce the value to the scientific community. So that's part of Anna's job. And the reason why I asked her to join is that not many of us has this kind of experience in working operations on this scale and in this kind of domain on the cutting edge of technology. It requires special skill set and competencies to work on this magnitude. So I'm sure that listeners will appreciate Anna's knowledge and all the tips and advices she can give how to manage this kind of scientific chaos and huge number of people who have very different kind of needs and requirements in order to perform at their best. But Anna, please tell us in your own words what are you doing in CERN and brief background.
Yes, hello Timo and hello to everyone. So I work, in the most exciting place on Earth, I'd say. We're a renowned scientific institute looking for answers on how the universe was created, what it was made of. And so I've been working in talent acquisition now for 10 years, but I've been at CERN for much longer and worked on different parts of the organization's mandate, including the IT department and various communication endeavors. And yes, it's a fabulous place to work. We have over 17,000 people here, over 110 nationalities, different domains, different skill sets. And the key challenge that we have is that people usually think that CERN is only about physics. But in fact, the people that we're trying to hire are the engineers, the technicians, the support staff, who are key and essential for the physicists to do their job.
Yeah, that's great. And one reason we are having this Futurebuilder podcast is that we want to know what is required in future on these kind of specialist jobs. So we have two different goals in here. Figuring out what are the main features that the specialists have in the future, and if there's any part of area where technology can help or support this kind of specialization that people will require to have in the future. So those are our two main goals to sort out during this roughly 1 hour that we have. But before we go into that, let's go a bit back on your own career and on your own background. What kind of education you have, and do you always want to work with HR, or did you have different kind of aspects on your early life and then moved on here?
No, so that's quite an interesting story. In fact, no, not at all. I am actually a biologist and did a master's in immunology, more specifically. And I've had a bit of an eclectic career so far. And I've basically been curious and open to opportunities. And that's a little bit how I came to work in HR, because I have a love and interest in people and a love and interest in having people work together, collaborate, and achieve goals together. So I think that's how this curiosity mixed with my scientific background as well brought me here naturally to work in such an exciting environment. So yes, I've been in HR now for 10 years and I'm learning all the time. I'm surrounded by very knowledgeable people in different domains, so I feel like I'm constantly at school. Yeah, I think that's the wonder of things you talk about. Specialists in the future. I think that's not something that you acquire in one go. It's a lifetime endeavor, and it's something that we nurture, each and every one of us, in building the specialisms of the future. And I feel that I'm on that journey as well.
How about the biology part? Do you miss it?
Oh, yes, I do. But life has that way of doing things. You can't always. When I studied and finished my studies, the options that were open to me at the time were not quite in line with my life context, and I ended up working in laboratory sales and then freelance translations. I worked in the semiconductor industry. I would have loved to have had a career in science and research. I was very, very interested in virology, HIV and AIDS specifically. But it's a very specific lifestyle. And, I have a family and it didn't quite work out that way. But I think it was for the best because I would never have ended up here otherwise.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting background and a good. It's good to know that you're not locked in what you study because that's usually what most people have, is that they stick what they have studied and then, they are unhappy with that. And
Yes.
your background shouldn't affect what you actually want to do and where you want to work. So that's a great example that you can do different things.
Yes, I'm very pleased you say that, actually, Timo, because it's something that I notice in my own recruitment role that I've had over the years. And the message I give to people I meet and youngsters who are going into their career, it's really not an end in itself. In fact, what you study is the opening. And it's just it helps you discover, it helps you nurture your own curiosity, but it's not an end in itself. It's not today you're going to be studying accountancy and you're going to be an accountant for the rest of your life. No. And that's the wonder of the world today, the digital world that we have, the globalized world that we have. The opportunities are so rich and plentiful that the degree is just a stepping stone to a great future.
Yeah, it helps, and you should have a degree in some kind of field. But I do agree on that. It's that this whole technology has allowed us not to be locked in on our path, but we can definitely choose what we want to do. And it was nice to hear that you're also or at least it seems that you also support this idea that you shouldn't have one big goal in your life, but you can have multiple goals in your life that can vary on your, timeline on what you're doing. So when you're in your 20s, you have different goals, and when you're 30s, you have other goals. Is that
absolutely
correct?
That's totally correct. And the wonderful thing about this is that you can't make goals about a life that you don't know about yet. You don't know what's going to happen, what doors are going to open. So I think the key is an open mind and that word again, curiosity and openness to new opportunities. But life is made of fantastic journeys and opening different doors and deciding whether or not you go down one or the other. And you can create something so rich and fabulous, which when you're studying, you really cannot anticipate because it comes with time.
Yeah, and when you're studying, you're still quite young, and as I understood, for instance, your brain's frontal cortex only develops when you're in 25 or something like that. So you have done your studies by then, and you might pick the wrong field of study, but because you're still not so mature. So that's
Yes.
good to hear, and that people are
Yes.
focusing on that.
That's true. There's something I'd like to add to that. It's the idea also of failure. When I started my studies, actually, I started in biochemistry, and I thought that was really what I wanted to do. I did a year of it and really realized that it was not what I wanted after all. And sometimes people may perceive that as a failure, but in fact, that's what builds us. So it's okay to make mistakes because you've tried it. And that's what builds you and what will make you have different goals throughout your life because, successes and failures are the magic trick, actually.
Yeah, definitely so. And that's what people are all missing nowadays is that, also in science community, that if you disclose the wrong option, it's as valid as finding the right option because you are then disclosing the wrong options from the mix. So, and that's people don't realize that it's good to know what you don't want to do, and that your findings in certain research, for instance, aren't what you were looking for. If you look at the people at CERN, how do you hire these kind of top specialists? Do they come to you, or do you need to recruit them, do some marketing?
Oh, yeah. Well, it depends. I think one thing that's very interesting about CERN is that there are so many different profiles that we hire. I mean, of course, we will be hiring the theoretical physicists, the experimental physicists, who are, it's like a little bit of a community. So the word gets around, it's all word of mouth, you know. They will come to us naturally. They gravitate to CERN, like it's a bit the mecca for physics, of course. Where we have to do more of an action and a kind of an effort to find the people is in the engineering and technical domains, because people who are in, say, electricity, electronics, or radio frequency or other fields like that, they won't think of CERN as a place to work. But we need these skill sets and we need these people. So that's a big part of our role here in the talent acquisition team, is to go out there and make CERN visible, show it as an employer of choice for those profiles.
How hard is it to get in? Do you have a huge rejection rate when it comes to applicants?
Well, no, I mean, I wouldn't look at it that way. It's what's the other angle that we mustn't forget is that CERN is an international organization, and we hire from our 22 member states and a further 8 associate member states. So people have to come from those specific 30 countries to be eligible for our positions. So, of course, there's where we manage to generate the interest and momentum, we get a lot of applications, but it's no different. And in fact, it's not as marked in terms of rejection rates as, you know, the big Googles of this world, or Nokia, or whatever other company. So we have 200, on average 200 positions a year. We hire several hundreds of students and graduates, and there is a high percentage of chance to get in. Yes, it's about showing that you're really motivated to join the organization and that you've got something to bring to this fantastic place.
Yeah, I guess that's what might surprise many, that it's not just theoretical physicists that are allowed to come in there and there's a huge process, but that, you know, you can get in there with other jobs and with other kind of profiles also, and it's not that hard to get in as long as you feel passionate about.
Yes, you've really summarized it well. In fact, what listeners may be interested to know is that out of all our 2,500 staff members, only 3% are research physicists. All the rest are the engineers, technicians, and support staff that we need, you know, to make and build and operate the infrastructure for the physicists. So we're really looking at all levels, from apprenticeship through to bachelor, master, PhD, students, graduates, professionals. I mean, it's really a fantastic melting pot. And we're really seeking enthusiastic people to come and join the adventure.
So you touched about the PhD and education part. How do people who come there, do they already know what they're doing, or are they surprised that there's a lot of things that they are not familiar with and things that they do not know when they come to CERN?
That's a great question. Yeah, it depends clearly on the domain that you're going to be working in. But I think a lot of the technicians and engineers, when they come here, it's the beginning of an incredible adventure, because CERN is all about, you know, the cutting edge of technology. It's building prototypes constantly, but there's also a lot of old equipment. You know, the organization is over 65 years old, so that's what's important, is to be open to the old and the new, the known and the unknown. And that's what makes the people who come through CERN so rich when they leave, is this new knowledge that they've developed. You know, you're talking about specialists of the future. They become the specialists who are going to hand down that knowledge in turn.
What kind of personality is required to work in there? Do you need to be ready to allow the bureaucracy in your life, or do you have a free reins on what you're doing, or is that also very position specific area?
It's a good question. I think there is no one personality for any company that will ever be generic. You know, I think the beauty of CERN, and it's one of our core values, is diversity in every respect. Different ways of thinking are what makes CERN achieve the results that it achieves. So I think it's about being open-minded again. I've used that word before, but it's about being adaptable, flexible. Oh yes, there's a lot of bureaucracy, that's no doubt. I mean, we need bureaucracy, unfortunately and fortunately. So in terms of personality, I think an open-mindedness, an openness to diversity, to different ways of thinking, to different cultures, to different skill sets, that's what makes success. If you're coming in with a closed mindset, that's a key for failure, frankly.
Yeah. So regarding the multicultural teams, how are you building those? Are you doing some sort of psychological profiles on these teams and then putting them together, or do you let them form organically?
It's a very interesting point. We do not use psychological assessments. No, it's an organic approach, really. One of the drivers of the organization is this diversity angle in every respect, you know, in terms of age, in terms of gender, culture, in terms of skill set and domains. And I think every single team is aware that it will be a better performing team and a richer team if it is diverse. Clearly, you always have pockets of French teams, English teams, Italian teams, etc. But they will thrive once the openness to more diversity comes in. So it's really something that we as talent acquisition strongly encourage, and HR as a whole, as a sustainability of the organization as well.
Yeah, you guys are located between French and Swiss borders, so the language part is also interesting. Are you okay and manage only by English, or do you need to learn French or German or anything like that?
It's a super question, yes. So the organization itself, CERN, is bilingual. So we speak French and English. It's not a barrier not to know French, but you have to know at least one of the two languages when you come. When you're here, clearly you're living in a French-speaking area. So for your personal life and your quality of life, it's important to be able to, you know, go shopping and do your, your social and hobby activities and have a bit of French for that. But it comes so naturally because full immersion is the best way to learn a language. And through working, through collaborating with people, that's how you learn the language. So there's a lot of Franglish being spoken here. But everybody understands each other, and we have people from all over the world coming, and English is clearly predominant here.
Yeah. When you look at these specialists and scientists, engineers, whoever, do you require that they are, these self-starters, go-getters, that they can ask the right questions and be proactive, or do you have different kind of personalities, more introverted persons who are happy to work in a corner and don't bother anyone for 10 years?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to come back to the diversity. I think introverts are very much welcome in the organization just as much as extroverts are. Every single job will require a different personality and skill set. Contrary to what people may believe when listening to me, I'm an introvert. I'm very much an introvert, but I managed to work on it and go out there and make myself an extrovert, if you like. But clearly, when you're coding, software or systems, you don't need to be gregarious and all that. But clearly, there has to be a self-starting nature to every one of us. That there has to be a willingness to be part of a team, to contribute, to take things forward, to be proactive, curious again. But I think we all have that in each and every one of us, whether we be introverts, extroverts, or middleverts, or whatever you call them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a similar fashion. I mean, I guess in basic nature, I'm introvert. I like to be on myself and alone and do things, by myself. But when needed to, I can put the extrovert gear in the fifth gear. But when you get home, you're tired because you have this extrovert side of you working the whole day, and then you want some own peace and quiet. I don't know if you're similar, but.
I'm exactly the same as you, absolutely. And I think that's it. It's being self-aware that's important, and knowing what your needs are to recharge your batteries. I'm very much like you. I'll be the happiest person when I'm alone walking in nature, and during the day I'll be giving my all to everybody else in the outside. But it is exhausting, yes. But that's about self-awareness. Other people will need to be surrounded by people in the evening, going out and being sociable to recharge their batteries. So it's always worth. You talked about psychological profiling earlier to build teams. I don't think that's necessary. I think the richest thing is to have people who are aware of themselves and what their needs are and what they can give to a team.
Yeah, so basically it then allows you have these kind of microcultures within CERN. You don't have one big culture that defines what you are, but people sort of like put together these small tribes that they feel comfortable with.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we naturally, as human beings, gravitate towards what we prefer and what we know. So I think that's a natural effect that will be observed in every single company and organization throughout the world.
Yeah. How are individuals, how can they affect the development in CERN? Are people listened? Naturally, you have over 10,000 people, so you have as many opinions, and not all opinions are necessarily very realistic. But how much influence can one person have within CERN if they want to develop the organization or processes, methods, whatever?
I think voices are definitely heard. Clearly, in a large organization of this kind, we have a very clear management structure. Like any other organization, we have hierarchy. We have supervisors who are, trained and equipped to bring out the best in their people. And I think relationship building, the ability to listen, forums, discussion. I think CERN's driving force is the collaboration aspect, a collaborative environment where people can be heard. Clearly, if you read our ratings on Glassdoor, we're rated very highly, but some people aren't heard. There are areas and pockets of the organization where it's probably a bit more difficult to change things or to propose an evolution, but that will be always for various good reasons. And I think I would answer that nevertheless generally in that CERN is what it is and has been around for such a long time because people are heard and listened to. The World Wide Web was born here because Tim Berners-Lee made a proposal. It was qualified as vague but interesting, but look at where it came today. I mean, that is a perfect example.
That's a very, very good example. What about people's creativity? Meaning that are they creative over there? And creativity is it's a very ambiguous word, so it can mean different kind of things in what it means to physicist and what it means to engineer. But do you encourage this outside of a box thinking and this independent thinking over there also?
Creativity is one of our core values here. I mean, CERN is what it is today thanks to creativity. And that applies to every single person, be they a translator, a legal advisor, an engineer, a technician, a physicist. The science is advancing because of that very specific skill and value that is creativity. So yes, it's fundamental. It's the core of what we do here. And the beauty of creativity is that each individual will be uniquely creative in their own way. And it's when you start, building teams who are contributing their individual creativity and putting it all together that you build these incredible machines that we have here. So that's another example, is these accelerators, these detectors that we have, which are the fruit of creativity of so many individuals, and it's key to problem solving.
Yeah.
We need creative mindsets to solve problems and to take things forward.
Yeah, and if you talk to your, typical engineer, he or she might not think of themselves as creative persons, but actually they are, because they are problem solving. They are doing it, in mathematical role, IT world, or wherever, but still it's sort of this craftsman job that they have, and it requires imagination, even though they don't necessarily think themselves that they are very creative persons.
Yes, I think it's lovely that you say that. It really is important for listeners out there to understand that, is that creativity is in each and every one of us. It's just that we always have a preconceived idea that creativity means, being an amazing artist or, building or producing an incredible film. Or no, creativity is in the everyday things that we do. And as you say, engineers, technicians are the most creative of the lot. And thus for our theoretical and experimental physicists, you have to be super creative to come up with these theories.
Yeah, definitely. And you need to be willing to, like you said earlier, be open-minded and willing to learn from others. So yeah, that's definitely in the center of it.
Yes, absolutely.
So now that we discussed about these kind of features that are very important in to these kind of specialists, so how do you match education versus experience? Which one do you value more? I mean, both are valuable, but which one do you?
I really appreciate this question again. This is super because it's all about CERN. I said it's over 60 years old. CERN typically is an academic institution, and for a long, long time, education primed over the rest. But over the years and over time, experience has always been important as well. But I think now there's kind of a shift. Is the experience in itself is extremely valuable for the organization's progress, because what people are bringing from the outside experience that they've gained is their creativity. And that is what we need. So there's a mix of the diploma versus experience. Both are important, but it's not a stumbling block. And in more and more now, what we value are these people who are self-starters. They may not have done your standard education pathway, but they are self-made. And that experience, beats any diploma.
Yeah, it's like with any job, you learn by doing. You don't usually learn it from school. You have good set of skills that you can apply, but you actually know how it works in real life when you start doing it. So at least in our field.
Yeah.
So that's good. If you had to pick one critical feature, what you are looking for anyone who wants to work with you in CERN, what would that be?
So that's a difficult one to answer because, as I've explained, we are an incredible melting pot of disciplines, domains, and we have jobs here that you've probably never heard of, as in not jobs but skill sets. We've got vacuum brazing, soldering technicians, which is thing I'd never hired anyone in that field before. So, in the time that I've been recruiting at CERN, I've discovered the most amazing skill sets that I would never have thought of existed. And the thing is that there are also all these jobs of the future that we don't know exist yet. So that's another fundamental challenge that we have. But what you're asking for a key, it's more about, I'm going to say it again, it's the open-mindedness and curiosity. And we need all skill sets here. We really do. So it's a difficult question to answer because there is not one answer to that.
So if we move on to these kind of how technology and how you can, enhance these kind of skill sets in the future, if you look at, for instance, open-mindedness, what kind of methods you would recommend for people to, have an open mind? For instance, following any kind of internet discussion is usually a waste of time in my mind because people argue then and argue over there without any good result. So just by scrolling these kind of conversations through, that's not open-mindedness in my opinion. But how do you define open-mindedness? And
I think for me, so defining open-mindedness is really welcoming and nurturing yourself with input from all walks of life and all situations. So how you develop that is stepping outside your comfort zone, professionally, personally. Going out there and experiencing things. It's something that technology can support because it's true, as you say, via internet we have access to all sorts of things. But open-mindedness comes from a willingness to go and explore and discover. It can be done through training courses in an area that you never thought of exploring before that would support the role that you've got. It could be very different things, but developing an open mind is confronting yourself with a whole host of wonderful environments. And that's why CERN is naturally geared towards developing people's minds, and to become open because of this diversity. Every day I work with people from, I said 100 nationalities. That is the most rich and wonderful aspect of developing an open mind, is seeing how other people think and seeing the richness of different approaches.
Yeah, and I would imagine also that different kind of cultures have different kind of approaches to, adapting this open-mindedness. So there's definitely a mixed bag of things that you need to do.
Absolutely, yes. And it's amazing because when we hire people at CERN, they often straight away set up Facebook groups or Instagram, I don't know, whatever, social media. And they come together at lunchtime and they discuss, and then they do sports together, and then they'll set up a new club. And we talked about creativity earlier. Well, suddenly the creativity comes into the open-mindedness because over and above the professional challenge that they have here, they're constantly coming together like a mesh, a web of neurons, and developing new things. It's amazing to see what's at play here.
Yeah, creativity is interesting that how you can unleash it. I don't know if there's any technology that can help you in there. I think it mostly happens when you let people be themselves and allow them freedom to do stuff. Then that makes them more creative. Because there was this one study, I guess, back in the 80s or something like that, where they studied how creative children were, and they did this extensive study in I think it was 15-year lifespan or something like that. So first they interviewed kids who were in kindergarten, and I think 98% of them were genius level creative or creative problem solvers and similar. And then they did the same test with the same group of kids while they were in elementary school. And then the percentage was, I think it was 50% were only genius level when it comes to problem solving and being creative. And once again, when they were in their teens, they did it, and then it was only 12%. And then they did this sort of like peer group review for 250,000 people who were 20 years old. And the percentage of genius level creativity and intellect was only 2%. So my conclusion was only that education kills creativity.
Yes. Or another conclusion would be hire the children.
Yeah, because
absolutely.
They're very. It was a very interesting study, and I do agree that it's very valid that you need to have this formal kind of thinking and formal kind of structure when you're growing up, but it kills the creative side of people in the at some point, I guess.
Yes, I think it's an issue of guidance versus control. I think a controlled environment which is very rigid will kill creativity and really make people become automats, you know.
Yeah.
Guidance, and that's what education should provide, is equipping the people with the opportunities to explore, develop their creativity, but allowing, trial and error, because trial and error is what builds that creativity in people as well. So it's a very interesting study you quote. It's sad, actually. It's very sad to show
it's very sad.
It's a societal problem. I'm sure that I know that in Arab countries, I was talking to someone the other day about this. There are so many youngsters who are so creative. And unfortunately, when they leave school, all of that is suddenly in a format where you're not allowed to do this job or that job. And unfortunately, all of that is lost, but it's still there within the people. And that's what's beautiful. I think different education systems will develop different skills. And then if you were to look at that study in different cultures, that would be very interesting to see how, Finnish children develop versus African children or versus, French children. I don't know. But it's true that a controlled and rigid environment kills it, which is why CERN has to be very aware of that and allow forums for people to be able to express themselves and try things.
Yeah, I think creativity also comes when you have this sort of safe space to voice your opinion and your ideas, and no one, trashes them at the beginning.
Yes.
I mean, some ideas are good, some bad, of course, but still you need to allow to have some sort of dialogue.
Absolutely, yes. It's so important to be able to have a safe, trusting environment with no judgment.
Yeah. One thing also regarding to that study and how children are more creative, I think it was done here in Finland that they asked a 5-year-old question: if you had a third eye, where you would put it? And naturally, if you're an adult, I think it was 98% of adults said that they would put it in the back of their head. But most of the kids, they said that they would like to have the third eye in their index finger, which is naturally a way better place because then you can look everywhere and you're not locked like having the eye on the back of your head. So that's once again that they think more creatively.
That's excellent because when you were starting this story, I was thinking I put it in the back of my
Yeah.
head, and I didn't even think of the index. So it shows that I've lost in my creativity.
Yeah, that's what I also answered that back of my head when that was asked from me, but
Yeah.
but now
Well,
I
I
know
think it's
more.
probably the parents in us, when you have kids, you want an eye in the back of your head.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
that's for sure. You need to keep
Yeah, for
300.
them to use their index finger. There you go.
Regarding CERN on the recruitment process wise, how do you work in that sense? You have a huge amount of people coming in there. What kind of process do you have in place to interview the right candidates and keep them interested?
So we have different processes in place for our student populations, fellow, graduate populations, and our staff populations. Students and graduates are mainly hired on the paper, call it that.
Yeah.
The application, the documents that they give, there it's more academic because they really do have their schooling and their experience around their schooling. And then panels of experts will meet twice a year and evaluate all of these files and select the best students among them. We're progressively integrating asynchronous video interviewing because we really believe that over and above what you're going to declare in an application process, the opportunity to express yourself in a different format, answering questions by video, for example, is an opportunity to complement your application with more substance. And then for what concerns the professional positions, these are really subject to quite a rigorous process where the asynchronous video interviewing is de facto included. So, we'll sift through all the files that we receive for a given job. We'll put a few through the asynchronous video interview, and then we invite the 4 or 5 finalists to CERN for an interview day, a visit of the installation, discussions, maybe a few practical tests, and really an in-depth assessment that then enables us to take a decision.
Do you use some sort of, when you do these video interviews, do you use some sort of facial recognition stuff that analyzes your micro expressions and stuff like that, so you know what the person are
Great
saying?
question. I like it. No, we don't know. This is all the artificial intelligence, which is all the rage at the moment.
Yeah.
No, we don't use that. In fact, I have to confess that personally, I don't watch them. I listen.
Yeah.
Because it's not about a performance in terms of your behavior or your looks or anything. It's about what you say. It's about how you formulate your arguments, how you're, if you're able to be concise or not, if you're able to structure an argument, that's what matters. But it's about expression. I'm very wary of all these things of algorithms and artificial intelligence who are going to make decisions in this place of humans. It's something that's really talked about virtually on a daily or weekly basis. But at CERN, we haven't gone down that route. No.
Yeah. That's actually a good point, what you mentioned, that you listen, you don't watch the videos, because when you have some sort of visual stimulant, you might get distracted and not hearing what the person are saying. So that's very good note. And I do agree that this this machine learning and AI kind of stuff that analyzes persons, it's good if you do some sort of mass recruiting where you need to have thousands and thousands of people and you don't have the necessary human resources to do that. But when you hire a specialist, it should always be, person-to-person discussion and not having any kind of machine in between.
I agree, because the other aspect, it's fraught with difficulties in the sense that it can nourish unconscious bias. A machine will say X and then you'll believe X.
Yeah.
Where's your call there? Where's your objectivity? So we're very much on the person-to-person level. I mean, of course, we are faced with huge volume of applications, so we have to have systems in place. But the human part way outweighs the automatic processing. And I won't use the term artificial intelligence because we don't use it. We have an applicant tracking system which is going to help us, maybe filter applications on the basis of certain disciplines and criteria. So one could argue that is artificial intelligence of sorts, but there's always a human being in the process who's monitoring and doing all of this.
Yeah. I don't think that's AI yet. It's sort of like this process that puts people in certain paths, and that if that path is not available in you, then he or she might go in a different organization. So that's AI is, at least in my mind, AI is someone who can make conscious decisions on whole variety of things, and is in charge of the whole process. So yeah, no worries.
But any conference you go to at the moment on HR topics, I mean, AI is the main topic. It's incredible.
It's incredible.
There are companies everywhere. I get calls every day from new technology providers who are going to say, you've got to try this, you've got to try that. It's fantastic. But ultimately, right now we're not in a place where we want to replace the human beings.
Yeah, and
who are doing the job.
Once you lose that human connection, I mean, it's the process comes very cold. So I also firmly believe that you need to have the human connection when you are hiring new people, because then you get this authentic feel that what you're doing work with real people. You're not discussing with a bot or with a machine. That's very
Totally.
very cold.
No, absolutely. And I'm so glad you say it, because it'll be of benefit to all the listeners out there. It really is about creating connection, about candidate experience. I mean, if I'm applying for a company, I want to talk to a human being. I want to know who I'll be working with. I want to see who's behind it, what their values are, what the systems are, but only a human being can give me that. So we're very attached to that. Maybe people will call us a bit backwards in that way, but I agree with you. The human touch is absolutely magical.
Yeah, and the people's, how they perceive things when, you have your automation in the mix, it's very interesting, because here in Finland, for instance, the one of the insurance company, when they process these claims, and if it's under, I think, 700 euros, it's fully automated. So one of the people, or many of the people, well, they put these claims in for 500 euros. And then they will get decision that, okay, it was approved, and they will get this decision in 1 second. It will answer their telephone that, okay, it was okayed from the insurance company that your claim was valid. So what that does for people, or for the group that were interviewed, is that they said that it doesn't feel real because it happens so fast. And same with, for instance, Twitter. When you start loading your Twitter feed, there's this, progress bar. It has all the information in place already, but it just needs to create this kind of mental image that is actually processing, actually doing stuff, even though it already knows what's in your feed.
Yes, I see what you're saying, and that's absolutely true. I mean, I have to say that in our processes, I mentioned at the start of our conversation that we hire from the 22 member states and further 8 associate member states. So we do have automatic, call them rejection processes, which are, instantaneous, like your insurance company example. But that's because we have to have filtering systems in place whereby, if someone's not from a member state, they're not eligible. So we don't want to create high expectations when they're simply not eligible for the job. So there will be cases whereby we will be implementing that sort of approach, but we will minimize it as much as possible to give a human interface.
When you think about the new prospects that are listening to this and would like to work in CERN, what are the best tips and ideas for them to develop themselves in order to get the right path and see if CERN is a place that they would like to work in their entire lives?
Wow, super question. Oh, gosh. I mean, CERN is actually, I said it's a unique place to work, but it's also somewhere, like any other. This is akin to a company. This is people working together for a common goal, a wonderfully noble common goal, but, all walks of life, all domains. CERN is open to every skill. So if people are hesitating about applying, I would say don't hesitate. Just have a look, delve into the weird and wonderful environment that we are and look at what we've got on offer, because there are so many opportunities here. And then tips and tricks. I think one thing that is true of any application from anyone is to, make it stand out. If you keep using the same letter, the same CV for everything, you're not going to get anywhere. Try and put that creativity to the test in saying, this is me, this is what I can give you, and this is what I hope to get out of it. I think it's a respectful thing to do. You don't just throw an application at an organization. If you truly want to work there, you need to show it. And that's the key piece of advice I would give.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for instance, I also see many of these cover letters that are copy pasted and are very generic, which means then the applicant is just, they are blasting these away and they are not really invested in the company that they are applying to. So you should definitely, have this kind of idea on what the company is doing and what's the value that you can provide to them. But it's also the company's responsibility then to give something back to the people who are, applying or working in there. Mm-hmm. One of the big problems I usually see is when I look at these job applications online that people post, is that you have a huge set of requirements that the company is demanding from you. And then you have the benefits part, which have like 3 sections, and this is what we offer. So it's sort of like this disproportion between what is required and what you get out of it.
Yeah. Well, it's changing times, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think people's expectations, generations are different in their expectations. And we need to sell the opportunity far more than companies used to. In fact, we benchmark what we do with company who surveys 20,000 students every year just to see how we're performing in terms of our marketing, if you could call it that. Because as you say, we're in a seduction process. We've got to woo these great talents out there, these super talents, as you call them, because there's competition. We're not unique. We used to be able to call ourselves unique, but we're not anymore.
Yeah.
So CERN has to compete with the best of the engineering firms out there, the best IT companies out there, best engineering firms, So it's really become a different ball game now, where the tables are turning in a way. Candidates also have to be seduced into applying.
Yeah, that's true, and I think it's a shame that it's that kind of thing that you need to compete with some company that is making some sort of beer application, and then they are making tens of millions out of that application instead of doing something like this. Because when you look, for instance, back in the 60s and 70s, well, it was during the Cold War era, but anyways, you look at what NASA did in the US, what kind of inventions and what kind of steps they created in there that are now public domain. So all of these rich ideas that they developed, the government, and everyone can use them. So it's a shame that it has sort of like tilted in this way, that the governments and organizations that do this kind of public good or research, they are now competing with these kind of, well, let's call it not so important kind of products that are out there.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think that's one of the things that I really, truly love about CERN, is that it really is in the public domain. We're here to share our best practices. We're here to exchange. And we do that all the time with other organizations, other companies. We're curious. We want to know how other people do stuff, and people want to know how we do things. So I think exchanging and, sharing is how we're all going to get better at it. Even if we're competing, we can work together and compete at the same time.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. If I look at our hour is up, so I better wrap it up soon so you can move to your regular day job. But if I look at the whole narrative that we had, there's the creativity, curiosity, and open-mindedness. That sort of sums up what kind of persons you are looking for in there and what kind of people you want to work with.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
That's absolutely great. 3 great keywords, and they're also part of our values. So, if you're looking for an organization with those values and you feel that you have those values, the important thing in a career is to match your own values with the place you work. So, yes, it sums it up perfectly.
If you look at the future applicants on this who are creative and curious and open-minded people, should they be in touch directly with you, or do with the normal processes within the CERN? And are there sort of like a quick path that people can get in discussion with the right people in CERN, or do you have this sort of like formal way of doing things, or this bureaucracy in place?
Well, it's not about bureaucracy, it's about volume. If we're talking about 20 to 40,000 applications per year, we clearly need to have a system in place to to manage an entry point. And we're a humble little in-house recruiting team. Our talent acquisition team is what, 20 people. So to manage all of that, we have a super careers site, careers.cern, which explains everything about how to apply and how to get in touch with us. And also tips, tricks, and advice, videos, a lot of information. Because we're not an opaque institution. We're very transparent. Clearly, we can't speak to 40,000 people a year. That's impossible. And otherwise, I need an artificial intelligence of some sort implanted in me. But no, we have processes in place, and we welcome applications from, as I say, all walks of life. And all our member states, our associate member states. And we do want curious, open-minded people. It's true. We want people who are really, really keen to make a difference and come and join this organization. It's got such a great mission, and it's really worthwhile.
Yeah. Regarding the mission, what is if you can summarize it in one sentence, what is your sort of like great mission that you want to achieve in there?
Well, of course, I think the key mission is answering the questions we have about the universe. But no, the key mission has a few strands, and the main one is obviously research. The other one is collaboration. Education and training is huge for us. I mean, CERN really is a place for education and training, and we have a lot of programs. We train high school teachers. We have high school students coming along. We have programs open to students, graduates, and professionals for all ages and all experience levels. So I'd say fundamentally, we're trying to advance science. We're cutting edge research. We're developing new technology all the time. Technology transfer is massive as well, because the technology developed at CERN also benefits. You will have heard of it. The medical sector. We have so many offshoots that come from it. It's really noble in so many ways, and it's not all about physics. Yeah, it really is about so many other things in terms of IT, in terms of access control. I'm just picking out ideas, off the top of my head. But it's also a very, very collaborative environment. We'll have hackathons that take place here every year, where CERN opens up its doors to invite applications from people who might have humanitarian or other ideas, creative ideas, and they come and do this hackathon in 2 days, and they come out with the most amazing ideas and projects. So it's a hub. It's an amazing hub of ideas, of people, of clever and kind people who are all working in the same direction, and that's to understand, the universe in which we live in. And another thing I do like about here that I will sign off with, I know we're wrapping up, but there are so many people who keep coming back. You'll have 90-year-olds who are still coming every day to have lunch here because they've worked here, and they're lunching side by side with students who are 19, 20, and it's just such a wonderful, wonderful display of this collaboration at all levels. And I think that's what makes this place so rich.
What about mission for Anna Cook? What is your great mission currently?
My mission currently, it's really what we're really trying to fulfill our mandate as in HR is to bring in talent to meet the expectations of the organization, but also to nurture them, to help them develop, so that when they leave CERN, they've left with an amazing experience that they can take back wherever they go in their future. Having experienced something quite unique. And, we only have one life. It's so cliched what I say, but wow, if you can have CERN on your CV and experience so much stuff here that's going to change your life and your career, that's what I'd call my Anna Cook's mission is I want to be a part of that. I want to give back to these people because I feel privileged to work here and to be able to be working in an environment where I'm welcoming people in and then seeing them grow. That's just the greatest gift.
Yeah, and as said in the intro, I mean, not many people get to work in that kind of domain and with that kind of magnitude. So it was great to have you here, Anna. And
thank you very much.
Any closing words that you would like to say on your part, or?
No, I'm going to sign off with 2 words to everyone out there: is just be curious. Just do it and take a shot. Life's got so much to give us, and in our careers as well. And all the technology around us today is really helping us connect and collaborate in so many wonderful ways that be curious and make your mark.
That's a great way to wrap this up. Thank you for your time, and next time in Switzerland or in France, we'll
Yes.
catch up definitely.
Thank you very much, Timo.
Thank you. The future is here tomorrow. Join the discussion on our LinkedIn page, We Are Futurebuilders, and listen to more Futurebuilders podcast on wearefuturebuilders.com.